Well, greetings, everybody. Welcome once again to the Rec Poker Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Fredland, and as always, we are sponsored by Running Aces Racetrack and Casino. And this is episode 122. Just a couple of quick announcements. Crazy Like a Fox is in full swing. We've now completed 2 out of the 10 sessions, and it's just going fantastic. The numbers keep growing, and there's still time. If you want to jump in, we actually video record all of the sessions, and so if you jump in now, I can get you a link to watch both of the first 2 sessions. You'll get all of the homework, all of the links, all of the content. You'll get access to the private discussion boards, which have been incredibly active already. And so if you want to be a part of that and you're part of Rec Poker Nation, which you are, you can still sign up. And you can just use the code FOXRECPOKER, and you can get that for half price. So $150 for 15 plus hours of world-class teaching, discussion, community building, all of that stuff. So check it out, recpokertraining.com, click on Crazy Like a Fox. All of the details are there, including the content that's going to be covered. So check that out for sure. We sort of had some interesting runs right away. So the first session was completed on Thursday, I believe it was March 21st, and then Friday night, I won. Saturday, Alberto won. Sunday, Chris Jones won. And now we're recording on Monday, so I don't know if we're going to continue the streak, but so far we've had a winner on every single day at Running Aces from those of us who are part of the Crazy Like a Fox training. So I'm just saying there's some good things that are happening here. Also, Running Aces Player of the Week. I forgot to mention it last week, so I got the last 2 weeks. Congratulations to 2 weeks ago, Alberto Briones Meraz, who took it down, followed by Steve Webb, Mike Dokken, and myself, Steve Fredland, were the top 4. And then last week, we had a 3-way tie for 4th. So the people that won Lammers at Running Aces, Daryl Whittingstead, Rick Alvanus, Alberto Briones Meraz again, Jesse Johnson, Ed Mokridsky, sorry if I butchered that name, and Joe Sullivan. So congratulations, all you guys. And then one thing I haven't mentioned for quite a while, but I want to bring up again, is Patreon is a way that you can support the Rec Poker Podcast. Obviously, a lot of this content is free. You're getting a lot of content every week, and that's perfectly fine. I'm happy with that. But if you do want to support and encourage what we're doing, you can go to patreon.com, look up Rec Poker. You can support us there for as little as $1 a month. Just to show your support. And a couple of new Patreon subscribers. Scout is the only name I got, so I don't know your real name, but thank you so much supporting us at $5 a month. And Sam, again, I don't have a last name, but Sam, thank you for your $1 a month contribution and support and encouragement. It means a lot. The encouragement does really mean a lot. So with that, enough fanfare. Let me cut into the discussion we had in the Rec Poker players. Let's talk poker, man. What do you guys got? You got some great topic. You got some cool hands. What's kind of rattling around right now? Or those of you who've been part of Crazy Like a Fox, what are your kind of early thoughts on some things there?
Well, one of the things I noticed is it's making me study.
Yeah.
The fact, I could blow it off every night, come home and think, God, I should study, but shit, I just was at work all day long. I'm sick of it.
Right.
So then you kick back and you don't do anything. Well, now you got, I got to put some stuff in the forum. I got to post some stuff. I got to run some Equilab stuff. I got to work on stack sizes. And it's like that, it's forcing me to do more than I probably would normally.
Okay. So it's a good thing.
That is definitely a good thing.
Okay. Which of it did you find valuable or more valuable? I mean, was the posting kind of valuable, or was it just like, I want to do it because I want to honor the commitment, or?
Well, I think the fact that I had to post something made me dig into things a little bit deeper than I normally would.
Okay.
So that whole hand was a stupid hand. I just started playing around with Equilab to see what happened. And so then I had it all together after doing that, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just post this and throw it out there and let's see whatever anybody else thinks, or from the standpoint of equity and what kind of equity I had throughout the hand. So
right. Okay.
I found it interesting. I played Sunday night trying to do what Fox said about always keeping everyone's number of big blinds together. And I thought I'd used to do a pretty decent job of stack sizes and realized, I don't. I know if in general, I know who has me covered and who I have covered. And I know real in general if it's by a fair amount or if it's pretty close. But that's about as far as I go. And I don't necessarily know who has the big blind or how many big blinds they have or even how many big blinds I have. I mean, I know within 5 or 10.
Yeah.
But 5 or 10 is a pretty coarse grain, particularly when you're talking about, 20 to 30 big blind stacks. So I need to get better at that.
And how valuable do you think it? I mean, that's the thing I struggled with a little bit. Was it's a lot of work to really do that. I mean, obviously the great players must do that all the time, but like that's kind of what I was trying to do too when I was playing was, okay, what does everybody have? What does everybody have? And maybe this is just more of a shortcoming on my end, but I was like, by the time I get to the last guy, I've already forgotten what the first guy had. So like, how much value is it compared to the emotional energy and the mental energy to try to calculate those things versus waiting until you're in the hand? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is it worth it is kind of my question. And I'm not doubting Fox. I'm just like, maybe he's, can do it more easily than I can. So kind of what do you think about that, John? Like the trade-off?
Well, I have a feeling it's one of those things that once you get used to it, it becomes a lot easier. And it doesn't need to be perfect. You just need to look at it. And I mean, you can look at it while you're in the process of a hand. Okay, I think this person had about 50 big blinds. Let's take a look and see if his stack has changed, or her. I don't want to be sexist here.
Right. Yeah.
But I think it will get easier over time. And I think what is really happening is a lot of the decisions that you need to be able to make are based upon those big blinds. If you don't know how many big blinds you have or the number of big blinds in play for the effective stack, you can't properly make the decisions you need to make.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be, because right now we hear a lot, it depends.
Right.
It depends. When do you call? Well, calling can be good sometimes, shoving can be good others, folding should be others. And one of the big things is that's going to depend upon is stack size. Now, I don't necessarily understand everything that Fox is going to teach us on that, but that's kind of where I believe he's going.
Yeah, that's really good. That was the eye-opening thing for me too, is realizing, okay, this is something I really never do to that extent.
And it's one of those things, until you do it, you may not realize it. Like, every time I use a knife in my house, I sharpen it after I wash it and put it away. And my wife always says, that's a lot more work to do it. And I said, yeah, until you have a dull knife, it is. And once you have a dull knife, it's a lot more work to get it back than it is to go. And it's the same type of thing. It may not be much value counting stacks until you realize how to use that tool. And once you do it often enough, I'm hoping it'll just become innate. I thought I was much better than I was.
Okay.
That's the summary.
Yeah, no, that's a great eye-opening insight. How about other guys' thoughts?
I thought the same thing. I thought I was better at it than I was because I think I'm pretty good at sort of categorizing people. That guy is short. That woman's got me covered by, 2 times or whatever. But like when it came down to it, I was making decisions based on some sort of innate sense of like, oh, well, they're sort of in this range. But like as I was really focusing on it, it started to actually change some of my decisions. There was a hand I was going to open. I had a big stack. I was going to open, but I saw there was somebody, 3 seats down in the big blind. I was like, if I open, they're going to shove. And do I really want to call? I think I had like King Jack. And I was like, do I really want to call to an open shove on this? So I just folded it. And I think I wouldn't have done that. I think I would have just opened and then been like, oh, what am I going to do now? And they did actually shove on that. And so it actually made me more aware of like what to anticipate from other players too, by being sort of aware of how many, as much as I could. But the more you get into hands too, the more the chips start flowing around the table. It's just so hard to keep track of it constantly.
Right. No, that's really good, man. That's exciting. Just kind of have right away an affirmation, especially when they shove. Then you feel really good. Like,
Right.
maybe it was the right play or not, but either way, you were thinking about it.
Yeah. Right.
Sweet. So Nuthek, is that you, Chris? I can't really tell. Is that who you are?
Yeah, that's
hey.
me.
Okay, I was like, who's New Talk out there? Well, welcome, man. I think your first time joining us.
Yeah. I'm a little tired right now. Just getting back from Iowa. It's been a long couple of days. I had a really, I would say 3/4 through day one, I had a really, really tough decision. I mean, you guys might not think that this is, proper poker or anything, but so
well, if you're okay, we're gonna break it down, baby. Go with it. We'll break it down. And
in the hijack, I open up Queen Nine of Spades. I'm pretty active at the table. I like to try and be the table captain, take control, and the big blind flats. So it comes 6-8 deuce rainbow. He checks it, and I really have no equity on this flop. I don't want to get, lead out and get check raised or whatever. So I check behind. Turn comes a 9 of diamonds. So now I hit top pair. He checks again, and I lead out for maybe 30% pot. And he immediately check raises me. And there was just the sizing that he picked was just a huge raise. I mean, there's really nothing that he's trying to, bet me off of unless I have Jack 10, and now I have open-ended with 2 overs. So I ended up calling. The river comes, a 3, no flushes out there. He immediately just stacks it in. And now that is about 85% of my chip stack. And I already had it in my head that he didn't have it. And I immediately snapped him just with top pair, and he showed king high, king jack offsuit. And in the last, I mean, I don't play a whole ton, but I mean, in every single tournament, it seems like I have to make some type of great read or great laydown because I just don't get aces or kings.
Yeah. Well, I think in those tournaments, you see, guys are putting a lot of pressure on all the time, and if they sense weakness, I mean, I don't know your opponent, but they sense weakness, they're going to come after it, and they're going to make you make some tough decisions.
Yeah, it's.
What do you guys think? What's kind of your take on that hand right there? What's sort of your take there? Obviously, you weren't there; you don't know the player. But Derek, you got something?
Well, once you picked up that equity on the turn, were you? I guess I would have thought your thought process on the flop was, I don't have a lot going here, so I don't want to bet and get check raised off this. Now you've picked up some equity on the turn. I'm kind of wondering about, obviously it worked out for you in this instance, but about checking there just to see what they do and turning your hand basically into a bluff catcher and sort of minimizing the, controlling the size of the pot a little.
So when I actually turned top pair and let out, I didn't make it.
Checked you, right? He checked you on the turn.
Yep. He checked on the turn. And I mean, I just put out 30%. I mean, I just want to get, I at least turn top pair. I want to get some type of, some type of chips out of this pot. And as soon, he immediately check raised me. And it's like, if there's no flush, I mean, if he's got, 5-7, 7-10, I just feel like he's going to just flat and either lead the river, depending on what it is, especially, if it's ace, king, queen, something that's going to connect with my range more than his.
Yeah.
And now he can get value from his hand. But it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think the thing that maybe Derek's referring to is, we've been talking a lot about on the show, just kind of when do you see bet, when do you bet those things, and like, it's just up for the conversation. It's not judging the play at all, but just sort of, on the flop, you've got really no equity there at all. And I think some of our conversations have led us to say, well, then that's the time to actually see bet. To see bet when you have either a big hand or you have no equity because you're not really afraid. If you get check raised, you just fold. So that's one thought, whether that's right or wrong. And then on the turn, you're actually in a situation where you have equity, but you don't really want to get check raised off of it. So that might be a time to check back. So that's just kind of some of the conversation. So I think we're just kind of exploring another perspective on that. Where you sort of check when you have no equity, and then you bet when you have marginal equity. And I get the idea that, hey, I want to get some value, I want to protect my hand a little bit, but that's kind of the risk, is when you get check raised.
Well, especially if he had, say, like ace-7 offsuit, and now he picked up open-ended, and he's got an over, or
Sure.
Jack-7 or whatever.
Right. Yep.
And now he's trying to check raise me off it because now he picked up equity in the hand, and he's really not putting a 9 in my range.
Right. Yeah, I think the question is just really like when you decide to bet the turn before the check raise, just kind of even, do you ever consider just going check there with top pair, or do you just feel like that's too strong, I want to protect it? Kind of your decision to bet the turn.
At that point, I don't know if you know who Ryan Hartman is.
Yeah.
He had been basically running everybody over, and I built up a big stack, and I was back down. Now I'm back and trying to accumulate chips mode. But even when I'm trying to accumulate chip mode, I play a pretty small ball type of game. I like to try to control the pot until, it comes my way and I can get it in there. But I don't know. It was just a really weird situation. I had already had it made up in my mind that there was no way in the world that he had me beat.
Yeah.
And I snapped him off as I Helmuthed him into the pot, as he was just pushing it over the line. I said call, and then he pretended like he didn't hear me, and he's like, "What? I call."
Derek or Rob, did you have something else there, or?
I was just curious. Did you have any conscious thoughts of what he might actually have, or were you just putting him on a general range that had nothing?
No, I pretty much put him on. I narrowed it down to Jack-10, Ace-7, somewhere in there where he was just on some type of check raise draw, and now he's going to bomb the river because there's no way that he can win.
Okay, so basically he's the type of player who he got involved in the hand to begin with, thinking that he's going to be able to outplay you.
Yeah. The guy was super aggro aggressive.
Yeah. Well, I've seen his name before. He plays in a lot of those, and he cashes in a lot of them. Well,
it wasn't the player wasn't Ryan. I was just explaining my situation that the guy had literally aces and cracked aces, and just like the deck had Louisville Slugger on it, and it's smashed. It was something gross, and that's how I went out. I let my emotions get to me, and after being in a hand with him for the umpteenth time, and I'd raise, and he'd go all in, or he'd 3-bet me, and it's like I got to fold ace jack, I got to fold ace queen, I got to and every single time he had aces. I've never seen, like, he had the aces like a dozen times at tournament, cracked aces. I don't know how, like 3 times I saw it. I'm like, there's no way he's got it this time. And I ended up barreling off with 9s on a 5-3-3 flop, and he had aces. It was
yeah.
So yeah, that was my tournament. Ended was for the first time in like 10 years that I let my emotions get to me, and my emotions made the play instead of my head.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's easy to do. How about you other guys? Other guys got any hands that you want to go over? Any specific things? I know I've got some questions I can bring up based on some of the questions I've been getting. But you guys have any other hands or things you want to talk through?
Hey, Steve, I did see just something interesting. They came across on Twitter today. I don't know if it's much worthy of discussion, more so than just to bring it up. I grabbed it really quick on my phone, but someone posted from a $1, so moving from like $1,100 MSPT to a $1 sit and go, that they had called off a jam when they were down to 3-hand, and it was a top 2, get paid, and they called off with ace king suited. And the person had said to them, and I don't know if any of you guys saw this, but the opponent had said, "Hey, you made a negative EV. It was not ICM, suicide, but it wasn't the proper play." And he said, "No, you're wrong. With ace king suited, it has to be a top 3% type of hand or whatever." So he went back and ran the math, and he got a hold of this guy, and he's like, "After running it, you're actually right. It's only aces, kings, or queens that you can call off in this exact specific spot, but it was in a $1 sit and go."
Yeah.
And all these like pros, like Brokos was on there and stuff, like they're like, "What is happening to poker? Why are people in $1 sit and goes? Like, how are they already knowing that?" You know what I mean? That you should be laying down ace king suited in this exact spot that it's ICM, quote unquote, suicide again. But anyway, so he went through it. So he got a hold of the guy and he's like, "Your next $1 buy-in, I got your buy-in, because you were right. I apologize for saying you were wrong in the chat." But I just thought that was kind of a bit wild to think of, where poker is.
Well, yeah, it's pretty amazing if you have somebody that's willing to lay down ace king suited 3-handed and they're playing in a $1. I mean, you got to be pretty well versed in the game to be laying down ace king suited due to ICM implications, right?
Right.
And you're playing a $1.
Like the Charlie Corrals and all these other people are just like, "Oh, what is happening?" Like, you know what I mean? The knowledge base has grown so much.
Well, right, exactly.
To the point where the guy just off the cuff told the guy, that's a, you know what I mean? You're taking a bad spot there, and he's like, "Nah, I think you're wrong." And then he went back and did the homework and ran it all and came back on and posted the pictures. And he's like, "You were right."
So the guy with the ace king suited must have been 2 pretty big stacks, and he was second in chips. That must be the situation.
I think, yeah. I didn't even look so close beyond just that it was like, wow.
It was like a 70
game these days.
Like a 70-cent ICM mistake.
Probably, yeah.
No, that's it. That is interesting, though. I mean, that's the thing where I think to Rob's point earlier about doing homework and this sort of thing, and kind of the stuff that Fox is driving us to look at with Equilab and things. I think there's going to be surprises all over the place. That, for me at least, where I would have thought that's a clear call or a clear fold, and it's actually the opposite way based on, at least from an EV perspective.
Yeah.
Interesting. No, I hadn't seen that. No.
Yeah, I'll forward it to you. Not a lot to discuss here, but I just thought that was kind of interesting, just a sort of a state of the game, if you will.
Yeah. Well, that's funny that all these, even just to the extent that you got Brokos and Charlie Corral.
A bunch of them are like
time to tweet on a $1 buy-in tournament.
Yeah, it probably doesn't happen that often.
Yeah. Rob, did you have something?
Well, actually, on Thinking Poker podcast, they will analyze hands, and they'll get hands sent to them that are from a 50-cent $1 online, cash game.
Yeah.
They'll analyze that hand to death, like it's a $10,000 pot that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And it's just how does poker work? How do you think about it? When do you do this? When do you do that? What does he have? What do I have? What does he think I have?
Right. So you're going 6 levels deep on the strategy for $1.50 buy-in. But at the end of the day, it's just zeros, right? I mean, whether it's $1.50 or $1,500, it's the game is still the same. The strategy is still the same. Is that Andrew Brokos's podcast, Thinking Poker? Is that his?
Yes. Yeah.
We got him coming on end of April, so I'm super excited about that.
I saw his name. He is one smart individual.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited about that for sure. He's going to make us all look stupid, but that's okay. We're trying to learn the game, right?
No, he's very understanding of us lesser humans.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. He has a lot of pity built into him.
Yeah.
Anybody else have a hand? Otherwise, I've got something I can bring up. But if anybody's got a hand or a situation or a topic that they want to talk about, let's go. All right. So here's the one that this just keeps coming up. And And maybe we'll just take another spin on it here too. But I keep getting the question: middle pairs out of position, middle pairs out of position, middle pairs out of position. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And I know we've talked about it a little bit, but who's got some insight there? Who's starting to feel more and more comfortable about those sort of situations where let's say you open middle position with pocket sevens, pocket eights, whatever it might be. You get called by somebody in late position, you get called by a blind. And of course the flop comes, king 6-3 or, king 10-3, something like that. And I think for us rec players, a lot of folks, probably still the number one question, that and ace king, which is kind of the same thing, right? You kind of have a middling equity sort of hand. Ace king is the no pair, and second or third pair is you have showdown value. But are any of you sort of actively working on that, or actively developing strategies around sort of those? You're the pre-flop aggressor, but you missed, but you have showdown value. Are you sort of generally just taking the same line all the time, whether it's aggressive or passive? What are you guys doing to try to get better in those spots?
Not overvalue how valuable a middle pair is.
So you're not overvaluing it. Do you feel like you're struggling with undervaluing it at all, or are you playing it passively, Taylor, or kind of what's your general approach to those situations?
I don't value it too high, so maybe I'm undervaluing how like a pocket sevens would do in that situation. But yeah, I guess in general, I'm just kind of playing those very easy. I don't want to lose a medium-sized pot. I'd rather win a small pot or hit big and then win a big pot. Like, I don't really see middle pair as a hand that you should be playing a medium-sized pot with.
Yeah. So
I'm going to say it depends.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that.
No, I really.
On what?
I've been in different situations. There's times where, I'll raise middle position with like sixes or sevens, and the flop will come king high and totally miss me, and the caller who is in the blinds will check. I'll go ahead and make a continuation bet, and then he'll call. And so then he'll check back to me on the turn, and then I'll just check back there where he doesn't know what I have. I don't put him on a very big hand because he didn't check raise me. All he did was call, hoping to maybe catch something. And there's certain opponents, and this guy I play with a lot, so I know what he's going to do. And he bet into me on the river when it was another blank, and I just called him off with my sixes, and I was good. He had like queen high or something like that. So like I say, it depends. I knew that opponent was capable of doing that. Now there's another guy that we play with in my WSOP league who, if he did that, I'd have folded immediately.
Once he calls you on the flop?
River.
Once he calls you on the flop, or you mean once he leads into you on the river?
Once he leads into me on the river, I fold everything.
Okay.
So it's definitely player dependent. But I think if you raise pre-flop and all you get is a call, and you get a flop with king high or a queen high flop, like say queen 7-4, king 7-4, something like that, and you got your pocket sixes, you need to bet out on a continuation bet on that and represent that king. Because 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a fold. Especially me, because I'm old and everybody thinks I'm a nit.
I mean, that's sort of the perspective, right? Some of those boards where it's one big card and 2 little cards, tends to be a good board to bet.
Yes.
So they say. Then the question, then you get called, and then what? Yeah. No, you're right. So is that kind of a general approach by some of you guys? So obviously board texture is part of that. So if it tends to be 1 big, 2 littles, that's maybe a continuation bet. If it tends to be 2 bigs, 1 little, that tends to be more of a check back. Is that a general rule of thumb at all? Or does it totally depend on, again, everything else?
Depends on who you're playing. Like, it's got to be player dependent.
Yeah.
Like, certain players, continuation bets are going to work better against certain players. It's going to work worse against. Like, you should be evaluating your decisions based off your opponent and like what range they have. So like, where are they calling from? Are they just calling from the big blind? Okay, well then it's potentially more likely that they've just got a super wide range and you should narrow it down? Or did you open from like under the gun +2 and then they called from under the gun +3? Like those are two very different situations.
So let's talk about that a little bit then. So let's say you open pocket sevens from under the gun +2. You get called by under the gun +3. We're going to look at two scenarios. Under the gun +3 calls you and big blind calls you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not worry about player types yet unless that comes into play. But let's say those are the two situations. In both cases, under the gun +2, pocket sevens, you open. Under the gun +3 calls you in one, big blind calls you in the other. Flop comes, king 4 deuce. Are you saying, does in that situation, does it matter if you continuation bet based on the position of the player that called you?
Yeah, a big thing that you're probably unintentionally going after here is in one we're out of position and one we're in position.
Exactly. Yep.
So to me, that changes a lot. The big blind should be calling with such a wide range that a continuation bet should work a lot here just to take down the pot. But in the other situation, under the gun +3, they're going to have a lot of kings in their range, a lot of ace high as well as a lot of pocket pairs that actually beat us. So we're not getting as many folds, and then our continuation bet is going to be less effective.
Well, just to make sure I understand, so just to be clear, they might both have as many aces and kings in their range. It's just that their range is
the proportion
smaller under the gun +3.
Yeah.
So the proportion of the remaining range is a higher probability that they're going to have a king or an ace or something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. And what Taylor's saying is the guy on the button is going to have many, many more hands that are not aces, kings, or
in the blinds. Yeah.
Whereas the guy under the gun +3 is going to have many more or less of those non-ace, king, or
right
pair hands. So if the wider the range, obviously, the more liable that guy is to not have something that connected with that board.
And when you're in position, the big blind checks to you, so you have that little tiny piece of information, I guess, there as well. So in that case, Taylor, does that mean, obviously, there's still more factors that are involved, but what I'm hearing is that you would tend to continuation bet more against the blind caller than you would against the under the gun +3 caller.
Yeah, and I mean, my train of thought is like, how often am I going to get my opponent to fold? And I think a lot of people would agree, big blind just calling and then checking to you is going to fold a lot more than someone who called immediately after you raised.
Right.
Intuitively, it makes sense, and then when you break down ranges and stuff, it makes sense.
Does anything change if it's a king queen 6 2 heart flop? When you start thinking about big blind defend ranges and that sort of thing, or is it the same sort of approach?
To me, it's close to the same, just due to like the position and ranges that came from. Meaning like the big blind versus the under the gun +3. I don't think a certain flop would dictate if I'm going to check or not, but just based off the position of our opponents, I think one, we're in a great position to continuation bet and take it down. The other, we're not.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you, at least in general, is what the flop is not driving your decision to see bet or not. It's position.
In this situation, yeah.
In this situation, correct. Yep, and obviously bet sizing is a different thing. Okay, what do you got? Other guys' thoughts on that sort of thing as far as those situations?
For me, the flop does make a difference, because if like you said, it comes king with 2 hearts. If I have a heart in my hand, I have backdoor equity that helps with my continuation bet. And the same with your low cards. If they give you a backdoor straight equity, that helps with your continuation bet also. So the flop does make a small difference.
So that would make you, if you had the backdoor equity, that would make you more prone to continuation bet versus less prone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if you hit another heart on the turn, then you're styling.
You're styling.
You got a set possibility, a flush possibility.
Speaking of styling, man, that shirt looks good, dude.
Oh, it's going to be 70 here tomorrow. I'm happy.
Okay.
My Hawaiian shirt.
Kick him out of here, Steve.
I know.
Get him out of here.
Well, at least it's 40 here in Minnesota, so we can't whine quite as much as we could have a few weeks ago.
Well, we got snow coming Friday, so it's coming back.
Okay. Chris Jones, did you have something there? I saw you unmuted for a second there.
Well, I just where I've been struggling with these is in multi-way hands, particularly when I'm in like even button and it's been opened and 3-bet, and I've got something like tens or jacks, and I never know what to do. I mean, I can't. It seems so passive and weak to fold. It seems so terrible to 4-bet and just have to just wait for the next step there, and calling, and then you got to count on hopefully the original opener folds.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just basically set mining with those, and it's just I just never know what to do.
Well, let's talk about that one. So if I heard your example right, let's just think of that. So somebody opens with fairly early position. Obviously, it'd have to be somebody 3-bets, and then you're on the button with jacks.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys, go. tell Chris and I what the heck we're supposed to do with jacks in a 3-bet pot when we're in position.
It
I assume
depends.
I assume we're it depends. I assume we're pretty deep stack, Chris. I mean,
Yeah. It's always. It seems like I keep coming up in this situation, and it's like all three of us are deep stacked. There's no it's not like I can just shove and kind of solve that problem. It's like this is a real issue here.
Yeah. Robert,
All right, what is the 3-better? Is he only is he the John Deere guy? So he's got either aces, kings, or ace king. If that's the case, yeah, then all you can do there is call and set mine. But if it's a guy that is very active and could be putting, maybe the first opener is maybe pretty wide. This guy recognizes it. He's very active. He's very aggressive. He goes ahead and puts a 3-bet to try to take this guy off the hand. That's a perfect opportunity to put on the squeeze. Well, it's not really a squeeze, I guess. It's a re-steal is what it is.
And so you're 4-betting with the intention to fold to further aggression.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic. So yeah, that's where I think player types do come into play here, and I think some of you guys have thought about this a lot more. So yeah, if the original opener is under the gun and super tight player, and everybody knows that, and somebody still 3-bets him, that's a pretty scary spot. But maybe to Rob's point, if the guy's opening a lot of pots, and the 3-better is somebody who's noticing that and probably going to say, all right, I'm going to take advantage of that. Those are two very different situations. In the first one, it might just be a fold. I mean, I don't even know if I like set mining. It kind of depends what you think that original raiser is capable of doing. Because like you said, if I, call 8 big blinds here and then they ship for 50, well, that sucks. Right? That just sucks. But if you think there's a good chance they're just going to call even with ace king or pocket kings or queens, then at least you can afford to set mine, and your odds I think are really good there. So yeah, I think that's one spot. The second spot where it's this guy's loose, everybody knows they're loose. This guy's going to 3-bet probably pretty light because of it. Yeah, I think I'd be curious to know what people are thinking there. Am I just calling behind for value to kind of underrepresent my hand and to pot control, or do I just put in a big 4-bet and hope they actually don't have the top end of their range?
Right.
I think if they're a looser player, you have to 4-bet there.
Which one's a looser player?
The one that 3-bet. The one that's, but I mean, you'll see a lot of rec players. They're only 3-betting ace, kings, and queens.
Right.
And then you really have to decide. If you call there and the flop comes 9-7-3,
right,
how much money do you want to lose with this hand when you know exactly that they're at the top of their range every single time they 3-bet? Because you can't, when it comes 9-7-3 and you check to them, I mean, they might not barrel the 50 bigs, but now you're committed to calling one more street.
You don't have to, right? If you feel like if you're going in with the perspective that I am set mining, yeah, even though you have an overpair,
And,
I think you can still-
now you have an overpair. It's like it's so
It's gross.
borderline.
It's gross. But I think you brought up the second player. I do think it's an important spot to really consider the player type of each of the. I think both player types really come into play here, especially if people are paying attention. Like Chris is saying, maybe rec players aren't even paying attention. They don't really know. They're just betting their hand. But yeah, I think that the first player super tight, the second player, even if he's a super loose player, if they know that first guy is super tight, I got to give that second player a lot of credit. I think for a pretty big hand here.
Yeah.
So I think you really have to consider both player types. I think
Always.
And I'm not great at that either. I'm always like, but I got jacks.
Yeah, but you'll always have there's two different types of rec players. There's the rec players ABC, super tight, and then there's the rec players. Hey, let's go have some beers. Let's toss some cards, and they're wide open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So the wide open guys, you can never bluff them, ever. I mean, it's like you have to switch gears and you have to start playing ABC against the wide open guy, because there might be 4 to a straight with 3 spades out there, and you can put a big bet in trying to rep something. They're going to call you with bottom 2 pair because I got bottom 2 pair. I came here to play, and it's you're never winning there. And then when you have the super tight ABC players, that's when you can shift the gears, open your game up. You can, when they raise and, they might have ace jack, ace queen, you can 3-bet 5-6 and sometimes get it through. I mean, it's really paying attention to every single player that's at your table, what their image is, and where the position of them around you. So
Chris,
I mean,
sorry, Chris Jones. What is there a particular situation that is more trying than others in that spot? Like when say you have tens or jacks on the button, are there certain player type combinations, or have you not really thought about that? Is it just kind of general? Like, are there certain specific things about that situation that really are more taxing?
Yeah, I guess it's when it's players who I can't, I think it's really easy if you can go into the John Deere or the Maniac type things, but when it's just like a couple of really solid players who could be showing up with, just a legitimate range, and I just at that point I'm kind of like I don't know what to do. So it's more like I agree. If it's John Deere, only aces or kings, I'm probably folding. And if it's, Maniac and showing up with 2-4 off, then I'm definitely 4-betting. But it's that sort of when I've got 2 really solid players. And in fact, the original raiser could still have a real legitimate hand in this situation too. So it makes it really dicey. Right.
Yeah, especially if they're under the gun and if it's somebody that's paying attention to, paying attention to position.
Yeah.
Even if they're fairly wide open, or if they're raising under the gun, it should be maybe top 10% of hands, top 15% of hands. So it makes it that much more probable that they actually have a real legitimate hand that they're willing to go to war with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. To me, it's a really tough spot. What do you tend to do?
I've been trying to. I think my standard play for a lot of years has been to call in that situation and just hope.
Yeah.
But I've been really trying to force myself to 4-bet a lot more in that situation. I think it's generally been working. I haven't gotten into a ton of trouble, but it's just one where you just fold when you face any more aggression. But if you get called, if the 4-bet gets called, you're in the same situation as if you call. I mean, it's a little, that they have a more legitimate holding, but you're still in sort of this, well, now what? Especially on a flop like a 9-7-3 flop. Now
right. Well, I think with tens or jacks, to me, you want to find spots to 4-bet, just like you want to find spots to 3-bet.
Right.
And for me, if I 4-bet with tens or jacks and I get 5-bet, it's just such a super easy fold.
Yeah, right.
And I don't really feel that bad about it. I feel like I probably save myself money by doing this rather than calling. And you don't need to 4-bet huge either. You know, if somebody goes 3x, somebody goes 8x, you can go 14x. I mean, you don't have to make it a huge thing. You're kind of it looks so strong, and if somebody comes over the top of that, I can just easily fold, and I'm never going to get in trouble with flopping a 9 high flop.
Right.
You know, so I don't know. I kind of like the 4-bet plus. If you do just get called, well, that just caps their ranges big time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because they probably don't have aces or kings or maybe ace king suited. I mean, you kind of now you can represent the big hand, and now you're the pre-flop aggressor. Now you can choose to check back in position. You know, I think it opens up so many more opportunities for you there. That I kind of like the 4-bet there in general, but it takes cojones, man. I'm like, I got 10s. I'm going to 4-bet here. The worst thing I do in those situations, and this is I need somebody like to charge me $10 every time I do this because it's such a bad thing I do in my game. Is that I'm the guy, right? So I fold my jacks in that spot. All the action happens or whatever. The flop comes with a jack. And at the end of the hand, I'm the guy that says, "Oh, I had jacks." Well, don't tell people that you just folded jacks pre-flop to a 3-bet. You know what I mean? Like I did that. It wasn't that big of a hand, but I did that in day 2 of one of like the 280. And I'm sitting there with like Cornudo and all these guys that are just soaking up all this information. And I told them what I folded. Like, don't tell. I don't know if it's valuable, but like, stop doing that. That's what I'm.
Was that the pot of gold you did that?
Yes.
Oh my God.
I got Matt Alexander on my direct left, and I got all the all these guys over there, and I'm telling them what I folded. Like, yikes. Anyway, I kind of like the 4-bet in general there, even though it takes cojones and it could be a good chunk of your stack. But I would generally 4-bet pretty small there, just so I can get away from it easily.
So I'm going to tell you exactly what I told Jay. You weren't playing like you wanted that Applebee's.
What? I don't get that. I don't get the reference.
Remember when I came over?
I don't remember anything, Chris. You know this.
Oh, good God. And I said, if you make it to day 2, I'm going to take you to Applebee's. And you
okay, I do.
Laughed at me.
I did make day 2. Where's my Applebee's?
Well, you weren't playing like it.
What other thoughts on Chris's 10s or jacks or whatever? The 3-bet on the button?
Another question to throw out there. Does it change anything if you're out of position? So now you're in the big blind and you've got. I mean, now are you playing those more passively? Or are you 4-betting because you are out of position?
Yeah, I'm probably more prone to 4-bet out of position there. Folder. I don't know. God dang it. Yeah, it's either a folder or 4-bet for me probably. I just don't like it out of unless I really just think I can set mine. Unless I really think I've got the great odds and I really am comfortable that the first guy is not going to squeeze me off of that. Because as soon as I just call, I'm just saying, squeeze me.
Right.
We didn't.
Other thoughts?
We didn't talk about bet stack size. So if you can call a 3-bet for 10% or less of your stack, that's easily doable for set mining. If it's going to be more than that, then yeah, you're in a situation where you're either going to fold or you're going to 4-bet. But I think if you can, in that situation where you have 2 marginally competent people that you know they're not real wide, they have a pretty good opening, 3-betting range where it's going to be pretty tight. I think you want to set mine as long as you can do it for the right price.
Well, and if there was a 3-bet and that much action on the flop, you're more likely to realize your implied odds than in just a normal pot as well.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I think too, hey, Rob, I'd like to at some point in time maybe even just submit over to you, Steve, the numbers. I think I've mentioned a couple times on some of our conversations, running through all of the profitable set mining positions of it. It's basically thinking if you had maybe 10s or less. Jacks is like it is tough. I mean, everyone talks about like they hate jacks for a reason. So, but like 10s or less, particularly like 9s or less, pocket pairs. The profitability of set mining versus this size bet and this size 3-bet, and I've gone through working off of like a 40 big blind stack to a 50 to a 60 up to 100, and it's pretty it was pretty eye opening how profitable actually calling from out of position, so that you're strictly just set mining. You're strictly set mining at this point, but how how big that 3-bet can come back to you and you're still profitable making that call. So at some point in time, I'd like to send that over to you, like actually type it up, because I did it, on hand notes, but and it's multiple pages, but it might be a worthwhile discussion sometimes. So to your point, Rob, that 10% or whatever it is, like I've done the math at some point in time, and it's higher than that even.
Really?
For some reason, like 17% comes to mind, but it was a while ago that I did that. But at some point in time, maybe it would be worth us even taking a peek at that. But again, it's specific to being out of position and then calling when there's an open and then a 3-bet, knowing that in some cases you're gonna call and then get squeezed, and you're letting that go too. And then it's also obviously assuming for some pretty good implied odds, to John's point too. So
That would be fantastic, Derek. I think that'd be fantastic.
yeah, I was quite surprised. It sucks because I already play passive enough, and then when I did that, I was like, oh, kind of got rid of, like, should I 4-bet here? Why? I'm like right here. I should play a little bit more passively, and I don't need to be reinforced in playing more passively.
So the argument, so there's the math was showing kind of the merits of just calling, but was the kind of the final conclusion that that's actually a better play than 4-betting?
I think it showed me more. I don't know necessarily if it was better as much as it showed the profitability, how big you could go with how big their 3-bet could be and still just profitably call at that spot. And then there's a really clear spot where it's like, it's not a plus or minus, like it's a neutral EV, and then it gets really bad quickly from there too.
Okay.
So it's pretty steep, like, whoop, so.
And I really like John's point too. That's something that can get lost on me a little bit is, okay, if I do flop a set, what, we always think, okay, if I get the right odds, I'm going to do it because I'm going to get paid off, but that's not always the case. And there's plenty of players that are never going to pay you off if you flop a set against them, unless obviously they have, aces or something like that. So that's where I love John's point, because it almost makes it, a much higher probability that if you flop a set, you're going to get paid and paid big. And that's very, very, something very appealing, I would say.
Well, like you said, with the, get paid off with the aces, I saw a hand this weekend, raise, call, 3-bet, call, and it came out king, queen, 3, and it checked all the way down to the river. The guy with aces never lost another cent, and Ryan Hartman flopped a set of queens.
Yeah. But
and he said, and he already said, when you guys like just cold call a huge 3-bet, that's king queen flop is the worst flop in the world. He's like, I'm never going broke there with just a pair of aces.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I mean, that's
and on the other side of it, I flopped a set against a guy, and he had aces and I like sevens or whatever. This just happens all the time, and I flop a set of sevens and he just jams his 120 big blinds on the flop. Okay, so that's kind of the opposite, of that.
Yeah, and I've had situations where I've had aces and it's come out, just like 9, 8, 7. I don't lose another single dime.
That's a scary board.
I mean, it's I'll never go broke there with just one pair.
And so that's part of this is too, whether, who are you playing against? Who is likely to go broke with one overpair, and who are those really good players? Because they're just not going to pay you off if you flop a set. Obviously, you'll get some value, but are you going to even realize the full 8x value that you went into looking for when you thought you had the implied odds? Rob, did you have something there?
No, I was just agreeing.
Okay.
I think I've been on both sides of that equation that Chris was talking about. I've been the guy with the aces that has jammed and got looked up by a set, and I've been the other guy with the set who got took out the guy with aces. So yeah, I've been on both sides of that.
Oh yeah. The pain. Chris, does that help at all, or are we not getting kind of at what you're?
No, it's super helpful. It's super helpful. I mean, it's obviously just a tough spot, but I mean, it's super helpful to hear how other people are thinking about it too.
Yeah, I think it's tough. What else you guys got?
I'm anxious to see Derek's homework.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's fascinating.
I've always been of a mind that if you have to put in more than 10% of your stack to set mine, that you shouldn't do it. And I don't know where I read that. I read that somewhere. and it's always been just kind of a general guideline that I use. So if somebody 3-bets and it's going to cost me, 20% of my stack to call to set mine, I just generally just fold there.
Well, I think it's true in heads up. I know for sure, because if you say that it's 1 in 8 to hit a set, you kind of want to have those odds where you can actually get a full double up if you hit. Otherwise, it's kind of a losing proposition. I think two things change that. One for me is if the pair is high enough that there's a decent chance I could flop an overpair. If I got 10s or 9s or whatever, then I don't really have to flop a set. Again, so some players, I'm still going to feel good about my hand. But I think the other one is a multi-way pot. And I think, Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were talking about where there's an open and a 3-bet before you. You weren't involved in either of those. So it's a very high potential. It's a multi-way pot, which in those situations, I don't think you necessarily need the 10% or the 1 in 8. I think you've got a better chance at getting a lot of chips that way.
Yeah. Just John's point. Yeah. You have the potential of the implied odds are going to be much greater.
Yeah. Derek,
Yeah,
are you still on, Derek? Was that a multi-way pot example?
Derek left.
Okay. John, go ahead. Soundskeep.
I was just going to say, for pure set mining, I tend to be a little more conservative and like to have a 15-to-1 ratio, strictly because you're not going to realize the full 8-to-1 equity all the time. But if you have that little extra buffer, then sometimes you'll get a little more than that. So overall, it's still a profitable play. Or there has to be some other dynamic, like it's a really crazy guy that is going to just be shoveling money into the pot. Then you can do it with 10-to-1. Or if it's a guy by the way he's playing, he has aces, kings, or queens, and he's likely to put all of the money in the pot afterwards because you've seen him play that way before. Then you can do it with a little less. But I like to give myself a little bit of buffer to make sure I'm getting the proper equity on average by set mining, because there's a lot of times you don't realize that full double up. You get, maybe 4 times what you put in the flop and not the full 8.
Right. So if I extrapolate that, John, does that mean I can think of a great example, but let's say somebody opens that you think is a very, very solid player. They're going to pick up on the fact that you flopped a set, and they're not going to probably pay you off full value. But yet to call them is only, it's less than 10% of your stack. You have pocket 3s or something in late position. Does that mean that you may have more of a tendency to just fold there because you're not going to realize the value if you do flop a set? Or, how does that change things based on that player type?
I guess it would depend a little bit on how I have been playing and interacting with them. There are some people that, particularly for the lower sets, lower pairs, I won't bother because I figure I need to get some additional equity somewhere. And that equity could just be having the best hand. So I'm not talking about a 3-bet situation here,
right?
Because the player is solid, but they may very well have ace king. And if I hit a set, I know I can get a little more value from them, but I might not hit my 8 times value. So then I might not. I might do as you said and just fold. Or I'll fold the lower pairs and go to the higher pairs where there's also a chance that I can win without hitting a set. If the flop comes, let's say I have 10s, for example. If the flop happens to come 9 high, against certain people, I know I can just make a big bet and their reaction will allow me to then play perfectly. They'll either have an overpair and I fold, or they'll fold and I take the pot down. So I don't have to have the set to win.
So no, that's really good. I'm just trying to think. So let's just scoot you over from the button to the small blind. What does that change? Say everything else is the same player, the same stack sizes, the same position that they're in. They open, it folds around to you. And now instead of the button where you're going to have position, you're in the small blind. Does that change anything as far as, wanting to set mine or maybe looking for an overpair? What does that change for you?
It probably just makes me a couple degrees more conservative. It's not like I won't set mine, but I want to make sure when you're out of position, your winning pots tend to be smaller, and your losing pots tend to be bigger. Now you're not going to lose that often set mining, but set over set does happen. But so then I want to have a little bit more buffer room. I'd want to be further from the 8 and closer to the 15 range for big blinds.
So it doesn't make you. It makes you more passive. It doesn't make you necessarily want to 3-bet more.
I guess I don't 3-bet enough. So maybe that I should be doing that. But yeah, I don't 3-bet enough.
Yeah, and I'm not judging if you should or shouldn't. I just kind of want to know if that, we've been talking about position a bit, if that makes you more prone to want to 3-bet, or you still just sort of say, do I have the right price to set mine? Will I get paid if I hit my set? Do I have a chance at an overpair? And in that particular situation, the position post swap isn't a huge consideration for you at this point.
Well, it is a little bit in that I want to. What I mean is, if I'm in position, maybe I'll take the flyer with only a 10-to-1 ratio on the chips I put in versus
right. Okay.
prepared to win. If I'm out of position, I want to be closer to the 15.
Gotcha. You said that. I just didn't really internalize it. Okay. So that's the difference, is you're going to play it about the same way, but you want more buffer out of position.
Right, because I'm less likely to hit my full equity out of position than I am in position.
Got it. Okay, that's
and I'm
good.
not in much control of it.
Good. Thoughts on that, guys, or other thoughts?
Well, last week we were talking about almost the same subject. Where's the cutoff? Is it, we always talk about those jacks and 10s being right at the cutoff there. So now if you're in the big blind, or let's say you're in the small blind, and we talked about 3-betting, we talked about polarized ranges versus linear ranges. Now with pocket pairs, I know Taylor last week was talking about calling a lot with pocket pairs, but is there a point where you're either 3-betting, calling, and 3-betting the bottom range, 3-betting the top range of your pocket pairs, and then calling the middle? Or is it just you're 3-betting, jacks are better, and you're set mining everything else? Is there a cutoff, or do you polarize yourself with your pairs?
Yeah, and I thought the conversation last week was intriguing, and it actually I thought about that for quite a while. Based on that conversation, I tend to believe now that it's the proper play to set mine with even the bottom end of those pairs and not 3-bet with them, saving my polarized 3-betting range to be more of those suited connector type things or suited aces, the stuff that I really don't care if I get 4-bet off. And I think this had something to do with Taylor's conversation, just that, there's so much equity in flopping a set. I just don't want to 3-bet with pocket 3s and get 4-bet off of it.
How about jacks?
That's my take.
How about jacks?
I tell you exactly how I play.
Well, we're all
no, I know.
We're all in the same boat.
I'm willing to do. I play. Of course, it depends. But in those sort of situations with aggression in front of me, jacks, unless it's against a certain type of player, I tend to play them like I would pocket 7s. And just if it's an overpair, that makes it more. I mean, the probability of being an overpair, that's encouraging to me. But I tend to not go crazy with jacks because I just feel like there is so much equity, and I just hate to get re-raised off of it.
Okay, then how about queens?
Yeah, queens. Honestly, I don't know why I'm on the hot seat, but queens, I tend to play more like jacks in that spot again.
Okay,
I will. But
we're just trying to find that threshold.
It's closer. Yeah, for me, it's king. Kings is.
So it's basically it's aces and kings is the only thing you're 3-betting on.
You're talking to a guy that's folded kings like 4 times in a $30 tournament pre-flop. So I shouldn't be the one answering these questions.
Were you right though?
I was right 3 out of 4 times. I was right. So you should ask the other guys. You guys chime in.
By the transitive property, you play jacks like 7s and queens like jacks. Therefore, queens and 7s are the same hand to you.
But it gets closer. It's a graduated thing, right? Like queens, I'm there's a higher percentage that I'm going to re-raise, and sevens there's a lower percentage. But no, in general, depending on the stage of the tournament, again too, like if we have 20, 25 bigs, let's just go. Queens are let's just go situation. Jacks are probably a let's just go situation. But assuming we're deeper, I kind of bought into the Matt Hunt solve for wise stuff, where there's different phases of a tournament, and phase one is preservation stage, and I'm fine winning a small pot with queens. I might just call, and I might just call all the way down. I might just check call all the way down because there's so much value in underrepresenting your hand. When you just call with jacks or queens, people just don't put you on those hands. And I think they'll barrel off if they got, they had a 10 or they have second pair or even ace high. And you can just kind of get a lot of value that way. Obviously, you can get outdrawn and that thing. So sort of I'm trying to have an overall integrated strategy. And so I think for some players, it would never make sense to flat with jacks or queens. I think for the way that I'm trying to play and have sort of this variance reduction approach to tournaments, not being scared, but trying to just reduce the overall variance, that's why I do tend to open raise smaller. I tend to 3-bet smaller. I tend to call down. I tend to check back in a few more spots than other people would. But it's part of an overall strategy. It doesn't necessarily make it right for everybody. But that is, queens like sevens, and in some cases, John, that is correct.
Do you not 3-bet much from the small blind?
I do, but I tend to be really, really polarized there. Okay. I'll do my suited aces, maybe suited connectors against the right players. And I will, aces, kings, some of those bigger hands too, ace, kings. But yeah, it's pretty polarized, and it's probably too much, but it's pretty thin on the edges of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I've tried to cut out calling from the small blind, which means that I'm either 3-betting or folding, and then to make my 3-betting wider, some of those hands are becoming a 3-bet for value rather than just a call. So I think I go down to like jacks and 3-bet jacks there, but then I'm also 3-betting a lot of other hands that have blockers and stuff that I'm trying to get the original raiser to fold with.
Yeah, and I
somewhat of a different strategy, but kind of similar results.
Well, I think it's different but similar. But I do fold like you. I fold a lot of small blinds to raises. I'm not a big defender, even big blind. To me, it's just a losing proposition in a lot of cases. So I'm not a big defender anyway. So I don't do a ton of calling out of the blinds against most players.
I mean, for me, I defend a lot from the big. Small blind, not so much. It depends who's opening up. If it's the hijack, the cutoff, or the button, opening up every single time. It's like I'll open up my small blind range to where I'll 3-bet with Jack 10 suited, King Queen, King Jack suited. I mean, all the way down to 9-10 suited. And just because of the fact that they're opening so wide.
Right.
So, but I mean, big blind, I defend quite a bit. I mean, give me 5-6 suited, 6-7 suited in the big, and I'm happy because I can play back at the texture of the board and what they're doing. So it's not always about it's not about the hand. It's about the opponent. It's about the situation. It's just.
Yeah, and those hands are great. Those hands are great to either 3-bet or defend with, I think, for sure as well. I'm just talking about like a lot of the defense. You see a lot of defending with King 3, Queen 6, that kind of stuff. That's where I tend to throw those away, depending on the player and the tournament situation more than others, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you're 100 bigs and he makes a 2.5 and you got King 3 of spades in the big blind, go ahead and take a flop. But if you're 18 bigs, you're not going to be defending so wide. It's you're either coming back over the top, all in, putting the pressure back on him, or you're just folding.
Yeah. Other thoughts on the blinds or the pairs? Anybody else playing queens like sevens?
I do once in a while.
Rob is just cringing there. I could like see you like starting to convulse a little bit.
I do on the flop when there's a queen and a 7.
When you flop a set with him, you play him the same, Taylor?
Yeah, if the flop has a queen and a 7 on there, I play queens and 7s the same.
That's good. Good tip. Good tip. That's about where it ends, right?
Yeah.
He's just setting us up for next Saturday.
Taylor is or I am?
Taylor is.
Yeah.
You're an open book, Steve. You're an open book. We know exactly what you got.
If you don't know what I have, just ask. I'll probably show you. It's so bad. Hey, George, you missed out on a whole bunch, man. There was so much John Deere talk.
Real?
Yeah. I kept thinking, where's George? You're not wearing the John Deere hat, dude.
Not tonight, no. My computer was locked up. I had to re-register into the program to get back.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Yeah, we were talking about, hey, if you're playing his John Deere hat, you weren't there.
Grandpa George.
Grandpa George.
Yes. Well, my John Deere hat wasn't working so good for me, so I took it off. It didn't make any difference. Aces got cracked today, so I'm hot.
It's all an act anyway. Well, what do you guys think? We got about 10 minutes left. Anybody got anything else you want to talk through?
I have a question. Speaking of all an act, so there was somebody in the $30 tournament on Sunday who showed up and said, first of all, he's like looking all confused, like, what? I'm seed 8. Where is that even? I don't even know what how to play. And this is the first tournament I've ever played. And everyone's like, oh, hey, it's nice to sit down, welcome, whatever. Then he sits down and he's doing, like, subconsciously, not really thinking about it, he's doing all these like chip tricks and like flipping the chips around. And I'm looking at him like, oh man, come on. But so I'm just wondering how do you approach somebody who's like obviously like trying to put sort of on an image that's counter to probably what they're capable of?
I think my initial reaction is I want to keep that information for myself. I'm not sure how I use it yet, but I don't really want to call it out to the whole table that, hey, all right, dude, I see what's happening over there. Because I kind of want to be the only one that has that information. But yeah, how do you use it? I think that's interesting. I think you just, to me, in that spot, I would just assume, okay, these going to be more creative and crafty than I might have originally given them credit for.
Right.
Yeah,
it's really interesting. I'd never encountered somebody who was like so actively trying to look like an idiot, but like was actually, he's at least handled chips before a lot in his life.
Right.
I do that every once in a while just to mess with people. I mean, just sit down. Well, blind. I got to put stuff in, and then I start shuffling chips across my knuckles. And you're like, you played before? No, it's like I just tried it and it just happened.
Yeah, I've never played poker. I just practice shuffling chips in my spare time. That's pretty funny. Rob, did you have something there?
No, I was just going to say that guy was a pretty poor actor. If that's, come on, stay in character.
Stay in character. Right. I know, exactly. That would be pretty fun, actually. I sometimes just to show up and like put on the big ruse of having no idea what to do. Just be kind of fun to do.
Right.
Now, George, you do that all the time. Or is that your real thing?
It's usually because I don't know what I'm doing.
Whatever.
Well, now that I shaved, I think I can get away with it.
Yeah. Chris, did he do anything in the tournament? Did he eventually, like, it was pretty obvious that he knew what he was doing, or what happened?
He was not like doing anything crazy. He was like, doing 3x raises and doing some pretty normal play. So he knew what he was doing, but he didn't do anything. I don't think it really helped him.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never seen that obvious. There have been times where I feel like somebody's been like a little bit like that, but not that blatant.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to stay in character in that situation, you don't 3x raise.
Right.
Right.
You throw out
all in on the first hand or something.
Like,
or you min
raise. What the hell you're doing, and you don't do 3x, exactly 3x, because then you blew it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the blinds are 50, 100. You got to raise to 200, and then when somebody calls, you got to bet 100 on the flop. Then you got about 100 on the turn.
And then go all in on the river.
And then go all in on the river. Yeah. Oh, funny. All right, got anything else, you guys?
Well, come with that subject. Didn't Fox mention that when he's when he goes to a casino that he doesn't normally go to, he pretends he's a tourist.
He'll dress up like a tourist, he said.
He'll dress up like a tourist instead of like he normally dresses in his regular poker room.
Right. Yeah, that was interesting. I thought for sure he wants to give that. He'll dress up nice and kind of look like he's just there with money. Yeah.
And that's why George wears the John Deere hat.
It totally is. It is. He knows what he's doing.
So, nobody thinks he's capable of 3-betting light.
Yeah. They say, oh, he's got to have aces. So they call with their 5-6 and beat him.
Because he did have aces.
He had aces.
The guy sat down the other night and first hand, and he went all in. I had pocket kings. I was the second guy to act. I called him. He had pocket aces. I was out.
Yep. Good game. GG.
But my John Deere hat didn't work that day either.
You need a rec poker hat, I think, is what you're trying to tell me, I think.
I need something to get
I might know a guy. Well, hopefully we can get I'm bummed that Jordan wasn't able to join us. I'll try to figure out. He still hasn't emailed, so I'm not sure what's going on there. I'm sure he ended up in a tournament or something, but we'll try to get him back on. But this is good stuff, man. New format. Hopefully that works for y'all. Trying to reclaim a little bit of my Monday nights if possible. Just I got a million things going on, so trying to condense. Plus the idea is the idea would be we have the interview on for 45 minutes, and then you guys can all be part of that deal, and then they sign off, and then we can kind of immediately react to what we heard and how we can apply it, and then kind of go from there. So that's the new idea with Monday night. So we'll kind of play with that format for a while and see how that goes. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know on that deal. But I'll email you guys, kind of let you know what's coming up. As I mentioned, we have, I'd say here's our guest coming up, but now I know I just have to say here's our scheduled guests coming up. Sky Matsuhashi again, James Splitsuit Sweeney, Ian Matakis, Rob Meyer, Andrew Brokus, and Peyton Smith. I just landed today, who's a fantastic young player. So I'm really excited about those guys, and we'll kind of see how that goes with the discussion. So shoot me an email if you have any questions, but that's it. Otherwise for tonight, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you, Steve.
Later.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night. All right, well, that's it for this week. Thanks to the Rec Poker players who joined us for that discussion. We were unable to land our guest, Jordan Young, so I'm sure he'll reschedule. We'll have him back in the near future. Thanks to Running Aces again for being our official sponsor. And also, Crazy Like a Fox, man. Check it out. All the information on the website, Fox Rec Poker, to get that course for $150. You can get all the videos, get caught up fully on that thing. Even if you enter into it now, a couple of weeks into it, you still get all of the content. And hey, good luck to you on and off the felt going forward. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, Steve at recpokertraining.com or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. All right, everybody, take care.